Welcome, everyone. And looks like we have a full house. Thank you very much for attending.
And thank you, everyone, for being here. Looking forward to having and being a part of this conversation. And Cruise was founded in 2013, so we're still a relatively new company. And in 2016 was when we began testing in San Francisco. And recently, in January of this year, was when we announced our Cruise Origin, which is our big project that we're working on to be able to launch a rideshare service here in San Francisco. I would say that the big difference between the conversation about AVs in the past and how it exists today is that today it feels more real because we've seen some of these vehicles on the road. I think it's important to talk about what our mission is. I think that's critical to helping everyone understand what exactly it is we're working on. And simply put, our mission is to build the world's most advanced autonomous vehicles to safely connect people to the places, things, and experiences they care about. And the cool thing about an AV is that it doesn't get distracted, never drives under the influence. When you think about just transportation equity, we know that there's some underserved communities that typically haven't gotten the adequate access to transportation they deserve. And then the climate issue. I think in San Francisco and California as a whole, we've been able to unfortunately witness firsthand the impacts of climate change via the unprecedented amount of wildfires that we recently experienced. Cruise is committed to the fight against climate change. We will always use an all-electric zero-emission fleet. Our vehicles are also powered by 100% renewable energy. We're committed to partnering with the people to drive life in San Francisco forward. Right? Why we're having this discourse is because we want to work with you. We believe in launching with cities, not at cities. Why San Francisco? Well, for one, it's our hometown. That's where we're based. That's where we were founded. So we're committed to getting it correct here first. One of the recent impacts of COVID-19 was the rise in food insecurity. It was one of the first indicators of the depth of the crisis. And so we worked with SF Marin Food Bank and the SF New Deal to try to help them scale and be able to serve these different households that they had in need virtually overnight. That we were like, hey, maybe this is a moment where we can step up and really be intentional and put our words into action by saying, hey, we want to help. To date, I'm happy to say that we've been able to make over 100,000 contactless deliveries across San Francisco. And I think the other important thing to note about this specifically is that over 80% of these deliveries have gone to neighborhoods in San Francisco that are below the household poverty line. So currently, the way you'll be seeing our vehicles is, like I mentioned, through delivery partnership, we've been able to work on with SF New Deal and the SF Marin Food Bank. However, you may have recently heard that we received our driverless testing permit for the city of San Francisco. This is really great news and super exciting for the community. I think naturally the next step in our testing is to be able to see the vehicle on the road without any of our testing operators on board. We are going to be conducting our driverless testing in San Francisco and looking forward to finding areas for us to collaborate and work together to help support small businesses in San Francisco.
I'm Trisha, and I, along with my husband, Ron, we own a men's, women's, and kids apparel boutique called Assembly Hall. The Fillmore Merchants Association is the oldest association in San Francisco. It's 110 years old. I think a lot of people know that Fillmore's iconic for many things. At one point, it was really popular for being the Harlem of the West Coast. And in today's day, a lot of people come by our store and they still know it as the Fillmore Jazz District. The Fillmore Jazz Fest, which is my favorite street festival in the city, is celebrated every year and attracts thousands of people to the neighborhood. And the pandemic hit our neighborhood pretty hard. Half of the businesses completely closed, 100%. A lot of them had 100% loss in revenue, such as my own store. And a lot of storefronts, I think over 40 were boarded up, mine included. And sadly, some of them decided to close permanently. In today's day, the neighborhood has a little bit of a different landscape due to COVID. And I can recall, being on the block for 9 years, I remember when there were no vacancies on Fillmore Street. It was one of the hottest streets in the nation, and the retail stores that have remained, they're opened up again, but they're adapting to the times. The restaurants, there's a lot of great restaurants, and for the most part, they've all pivoted, and they did curbside, they did takeout, and a lot of them have reopened with these amazing parklets. And the neighborhood, I feel, is revitalizing again with almost 10 parklets and a partial street closure at Washington Street. For my own personal business, we've pivoted. We've beefed up our online and social media presence, which I think is what a lot of retailers on Fillmore Street have done. And we've downsized, though, our physical store presence. So instead of 2 storefronts, we're down to 1. And then also changing our product offering. So as a clothing store, fashion needs have changed. And I think us, along with a lot of the retailers on Fillmore Street, have had to just pivot. At this point, people are looking at fashion differently. They don't need to shop for work attire necessarily.
I wish I had a story like Trisha where I could say our merchant association has been around that long. Unfortunately, it's probably not even 2 years old. And when COVID hit, pretty much the entire marina sort of went into lockdown mode, including some businesses initially not, but then being boarded up. I am a real estate agent in District 2. And, I think this really has to do, a lot of this that's been going on in the pandemic really hit more retail, merchants in general, right? Retail, restaurants. And so
everyone was completely shut down. And after about a month, we were allowed restaurant-wise, we're a restaurant, to do to-go drinks, to-go food, and the delivery service really helped us out.
My family has had restaurants in San Francisco for many years, so I've always been part of San Francisco. My parents had a restaurant up on Clay and Jones for about 25 years. My family's from here. I think my grandparents go back to about 1899. I took over right in the middle of, my partner and I purchased Button Down square in the middle of COVID. So it was a tremendous change for us in the sense of how to, we didn't have a website. We didn't have, with the business, Button Down been here for 40 years, very core clientele for the business that Michael Sabino had built for many years. We didn't want to change that formula because the people that are up here and the people that are in the area love the store. Part of kind of bringing back people, even if they weren't able to come in the store and shop, they were going on the website and seeing product, calling us, asking us how things were going. Hey, I saw this, I love this brand. We decided, since we didn't want to have, we couldn't bring a lot of people together, to start doing private shopping events through our website. So we were able to offer blocks that people basically could book to come and look at the sale product. Now, as part of the Merchant Association, I'm partnering with more of the businesses in the area to give them an ability to kind of market themselves. We lost a lot of businesses that were established, but we're looking forward to a good holiday and to bringing new retailers back to the street.
I'm the president of the new president of the Union Street Association. I took it over just prior to COVID, and as you well know, we're now trying to build our way out of COVID. So a little history dating back. Union Street, Cow Hollow used to be a pasture, and I actually went to Marina Galileo. So I date back on the street. I used to go to Marina. I used to come down here when I was 12 years old, and I actually watched the street evolve into a commercial district, because prior to that, it was more of a family neighborhood. My goal right now is to end the conditional use permits for restaurants on Union Street.
Here, our demographic is women. This is one of the few areas of the city that has more women than men. And for that, you see a lot of nail and hair salons that have catered, obviously, to that kind of foot traffic. Our industry was schools and hospitals. We're surrounded by, I was very surprised, within about a 4-block radius, really about 20 schools. And if you expand out maybe just a couple of blocks, there are 4 full-fledged hospitals, 2 very close, and our actual association. Since COVID has started, we've seen 3 new parklets show up. One, probably the largest I'll refer to, is not just a parklet, but a parklet and a parking lot. Everybody has been doing a good job with the health standards around here, so much so that we've even had Karen and Kevin out there making sure. So We've actually been complimented by the city for what we're doing here at Scopo di Vino in following all the health standards, basically to the same level of what some of the hospitals are doing. And part of that is because we're surrounded by health workers, and health workers are our customers. So we kind of know who we're catering to.
As businesses evolve and pivot during this period, how do you see Cruise fitting into this new COVID world that we're in?
So number one, I think you all hit on the point perfectly that COVID has really forced us all to sort of shift our mindset and pivot to figure out how we can adjust to this new normal. I think one of the things that's interesting about the merchant community, and you all know this, better than I, is that the shopping experience over the last few years, even prior to COVID, has been shifting. So I think the obvious way which we sort of have begun to see through the partnership with the food banks is through another delivery service, right? I think that is one way that Cruise could help support these businesses as you all transition to, whether it's a curbside pickup or just full-on delivery service. We think that that's one avenue. I think the other thing that's important to think through is how do we connect the different communities across San Francisco. I briefly touched on transportation equity earlier today. And the fact of the matter is that there are some communities in San Francisco that just don't have adequate transportation. One of the cool things about Cruise is that we own and operate our entire fleet, or that, that is the goal as we build the service, which gives us the capability of strategically placing vehicles in different communities that don't have that adequate access to transportation. And, whether folks use the Cruise vehicle to maybe get to the nearest bike station, or they use it to get to their nearest public transportation line, we see that as a win for the business community because it unlocks an entirely new consumer base. To the extent that we can be a help to any of your businesses, definitely want to have those conversations. I am simultaneously having the same conversation with different groups on the subject of accessibility to try to understand, what are your specific challenges? What would be helpful for you? I've worked with had a few conversations with quite a few advocacy groups that serve the visually impaired community. So getting an understanding from their perspective of what are your day-to-day struggles. In short, we're having these conversations. That's the reason why we're here. And I always encourage everyone that I meet with, if you have any recommendations on groups that we should be engaging with, please send them my way.
Again, thank you to you all for making this an amazing community forum. Thank you.